Well, happy fucking Thursday. It's an episode of Dualistic Unity Raw. I'm stoked. It's the last day of the week, and yet it's not for so many reasons. And what I mean is that we've been busy. We've been really, really busy, not just with Dualistic Unity groups and with the upcoming retreat in Virginia Beach on February 1st. We still have a few tickets left for that if anybody's interested, by the way, because we'd love to see you. And if we have room, why the fuck not? I mean, it's not going to be our biggest event by any means, but it is our biggest mini retreat so far to date. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But that said, we've been working on a book. We've been working on a book that we have been talking about for about a year, I think, on our tier 3 groups here and there. I know we brought it up and then we started working on it. And then, you know, the Netherlands and everything that happened last year in terms of life changes for me and for you and so on and so forth. And so we never ended up actually getting to the book, but now we are cooking with gas. Holy Christ. We are several chapters. I want to say episodes. We're several chapters into the book right now, and the structure is amazing. I'm very excited. And I know you're like, well, of course you're going to say it's amazing, Ray. You're helping to write it. It's like, yeah, it's true. That's true. But if it was a piece of shit, I'd be honest about it. And admittedly, like, the flow is so natural because it's the flow that we have here on the podcast. It's the flow of our conversations in our groups. It's the flow of our conversations at our retreats. It is the transition from thinking that you need to be more to recognizing that you are already everything that you need to be. Just express more of that. Just express that if you want to. So it's a very different type of book. And we can't talk about the title, but it's awesome. And it's going to seem super arrogant. It's going to catch a lot of people's attention. But it's kind of tongue in cheek. So I'm looking forward to chatting about it. And I think we're likely going to do so this Sunday on our tier 2 and tier 3 groups. I know we're going to release the title to our tier 2 supporters very shortly. We did actually yesterday, so we could probably do so today in today's group for anybody who missed it. Or not yesterday, Tuesday.
For sure. Yes. Not released to tier 1 yet, only tier 2. But
We'll get to
yeah.
you. We'll get there though. Don't worry. It's coming. It's coming quick because I mean, fuck, these chapters are just popping off.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's gonna be really cool to get out there because it's really fucking good. Like it's really, really good, really well structured and well made, and just like hits on everything from a very practical standpoint. And it's not like some wooey thing at all. Like we have, and I'm really liking the exercises that we're putting together too for at least through chapter 1 so far. Good amount of just like very practical things that can help shift you, and not even like necessarily take big chunks, but just a little bit of slight movement, to get things going and get things cooking. But yeah, it'll be fun to be able to preview and, leak certain parts of it as we go, because at this rate, if we're doing 10 chapters, like it's not going to be that much longer before, like it's not going to be a next year thing. It's like a month's thing, and be able to get it out there. So yeah, it's super exciting to have that. The thought of like having written a book that's a legit book that's like, a couple hundred pages is pretty damn cool. And it's gonna have so much to it that it's gonna be long standing, I think, as much as we'll do more on specific things. Like this one will be, yeah, meat and potatoes of everything that we discuss on the podcast. So much of it being just that like it stems from here. Like you stem from here, your experience stems from here, like right here, right now. And as much as we'll create like a, sort of timeline or story or whatever it may be, like it's always this, like the fullness of everything that you're going through or experiencing, all the things that you're thinking about, like they're not really happening right here. And when that perspective's, taken in a little bit more, it's like there's more attention given, almost like it's not even like, live each day like your last, but like moment to moment. There's an attention that can be given as if it is dying and shifting and changing. in a sense, because it is when you let it and when you allow it to play out. But yeah, super excited to get that out and chat a little bit more about it on Sunday.
Oh my god, yeah. Hell yeah. Well, I can't help myself. I'm gonna chat a little bit about it right now. Just because to be able to communicate just the shift between perspectives of yourself as an individual in the universe as opposed to yourself, the awareness of the universe. To be able to communicate that in a journey throughout 10 chapters that makes sense, that doesn't ask you to believe. It's not asking you to hold on to a concept. It's grounded here and now in the real experience that you're having day to day. And then we actually get to just break it down with obvious examples. I think that's one of my favorite parts right now of the chapters that we've written are the sources that we're citing, the studies that we're citing that show exactly what we're saying and how obvious it is when you look at it for what it is. And so it's a really interesting way to just kind of introduce a perspective gradually, understanding that it's radically different. It's the same thing that we do on the podcast, except that we are endeavoring, instead of communicating this over many, many episodes, over many, many seasons, to do so in a, I guess, kind of overarching way within 10 chapters. So, if you would like to be a part of this process, we would love to get your feedback. You can join us on Patreon, Tier 2, Tier 3. Both are going to be involved in the very near future. As Andrew said, this is kicking along really fast. So, if you want to be part of you are part of the mind. But if you want to be part of the brainstorming activities that are going to happen around this, and by that I mean just shooting the shit, going back and forth, maybe reading an excerpt or two, getting some feedback, that kind of thing, this is definitely the time to join Patreon if you haven't yet. There is a free trial available for 7 days for a tier 2 membership. You also get to chat with us 5 days a week, which it's not mandatory. You don't have to put up with me 5 days a week. Don't worry. But you can choose to put up with me 5 days a week. You can choose to put up with Andrew 5 days a week if you would like to be, I don't know, in a place where you can just shoot the shit. That's really it. Don't come if you're hoping to learn something. That's definitely not what we want you to do because you're already learning. You're already learning. Anything that I'm going to teach you comes from some degree of arrogance. If I'm like, oh, well, you need to learn this. It's like, well, do I? Because I'm kind of caught up learning this at the moment. It's like, all right, focus on that. Get that done. And then, and then something else will happen. Because I mean, that's really it. It comes down to relevance, right? Doesn't it come down to relevance in so many ways? God, I can't remember the lyric. There was a Jack Johnson song, and it was something along the lines of, and it's all in good intentions. You're talking to me about, saving the world, but it's not important to me at the moment. Like I got other shit to think about, right? And that's kind of the point is meeting people where they are. What is relevant to them right now? What is important to them right now? And you might think it's unimportant in your current state of mind, right? But that's not really the important part, is it? It's not really what you think is important. It's reaching in and understanding what's important to them so that way you can communicate to them through that language. Because everything that's important to us becomes our language, right? Like if biology is important to you, I guarantee you go up and down about different parts of the human body or different parts of whatever branch of biology you are interested in. If that's your priority, then it's going to be part of your language, right? And the same is true for anything else. If art is your priority, you're going to talk a lot about art. If literature is your priority, and again, so why is that your priority? Well, because that's where you find your expression, right? Or that's where you resonate. Understanding that gives us something to talk about, not the thing in itself, because honestly, I don't know about the thing that you're interested possibly. Like if you were to come up to me and go, I'm really interested in cars, I'd draw a total fucking blank, right? And it's not because I don't have experience with cars, it's just I have no interest in them, right? But that doesn't mean that I wouldn't show interest in your interest. And I would, because it's through whatever it is that you're interested in cars that you're communicating yourself. You're communicating your journey. You might be doing it through, changing a carburetor. You might be doing it through changing tires. You might be doing it through, you know, looking through different models of old cars. But you're still communicating yourself. You're still in that conversation. It doesn't matter what the skin over top is, right? It's always us doing it. This is why it's so very interesting. Like we want to judge people who do superficial things, but they do those superficial things because they feel safe there. And if you judge them as being superficial, and I don't mean don't discern them as being superficial. Like that, there's a very big difference, right? Like you can recognize somebody's being superficial without judging them for being superficial. Right? Because again, you can recognize where it comes from. You can even recognize it within yourself when you've been superficial. Right? So it's not through attacking the superficiality that you make a connection, because even that is a superficial approach if you think about it. But it's through connecting with that person, opening up, listening to what you might find to be unimportant, because what is really important, and I guess that's it. Like for me, what's important is the connection that's always there, and that's it. It's just I spent so much time running from it, I guess, running from the reality of it, that now it's just a priority in itself. Not that it has to be taken care of or anything, just it's just a priority. It's the background with which I live. It's the background of all my communication, right? And so that's the language that I speak, where you're important. You're important as me, in fact.
And it's like until you start realizing that or looking at things like that with genuine interest in, you know, reality and what someone's interested in, like there's going to be certain focuses, like certain, I don't know, selfish things done because oh man, it's almost like we deem ourselves more important based on how much we focus on things. And is it like, am I prioritizing myself over reality, over my experience? And so there is, of course, and I've been, I don't know, I brought this up a couple times just with selfishness and how much there's like it's pitched as this thing, but really it's like so much of the world, myself, does it without thinking of it like that because there's like an underlying sort of assumption that I'm more important to me than anyone else is to me. And it's like, it's, oh God, it's so fucking interesting because not everyone necessarily holds on to that. And again, I can only know my own experience. And that's why it's been like there's been feelings of like, oh my God, am I a complete and total farce and fraud and all that stuff's been hitting me hard recently. And it's like I don't know. It's all just assumption, but again, it's just different perspectives of things, right? It's like there could be that perspective that you're entirely full of shit, and not running from that is an important thing to look at because then you're more honest with yourself about things. And because, oh God, it's so funny how we'll hold on to certain perspectives of ourselves. And that's why it's so important to not, we're talking a little bit about positivity on the new High and Empowered podcast. Fuck yeah. I believe they're going to be uh live streaming every week, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern time. And we'll, you know, maybe show here and there. But yeah, Oren and Julia, fucking shout out to you two. I'm very, very, very excited for that segment and series. But we're talking about positivity and just how important it is to not focus on that. Cause like focusing here, being involved, being, you know, not necessarily prioritizing yourself over experience itself, over reality, like that doesn't involve positivity or negativity. It's like it's it's like being positive or being negative is very much requires underlying judgments and underlying, you know, certainty that I can come up with some truth that I can know something. Because then it's like there's actions taken, positive or negative, based on a judgment. It's like the next sort of step after I judge something in a certain way. But if I'm not judging something in a certain way, then there isn't, oh, that's what looked a little bit different on here. We're all zoomed out. If I'm not taking that perspective or maintaining that initial judgment of anything, because that's where, judgments of myself, judgments of others are the same thing. Judgments of anything that's happening ever comes from. And then we take actions based on the underlying judgment, but we don't want to question the underlying judgment. So we just keep taking actions based on, that underlying layer of assumption. But what if we start looking at that? What if we're like, well, I don't know that? Then it's harder to make those moves based on that. It's not like the false certainty that we can base that off of. So then you're just left with yourself moment to moment. And all you have is sensitivity. All you have is right now. You don't have, your judgments and assumptions or your assumptions and then judgments and then actions to rely upon. And that's how you can kind of see, where people are at just based on how they live and what they do and what they focus on. It's like, because those things stem from an underlying assumption, be it about yourself or about, whatever's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, it's a Thursday, and I just wanted to mention because it's kicking up fast now. We have a life troubleshooter. We have a new GPT of our own. For anybody who's watching this, if you haven't tried it yet, why haven't you tried it yet? Go and try this. And I mean this. It's very rarely that I'm like, you should go and try this, but you should totally go and try this. And I want to make it clear, we make absolutely no money, no commission whatsoever from ChatGPT Plus accounts being referred to by us, because you need a ChatGPT Plus account to use this, unfortunately. But it does mean that you can use everything else on ChatGPT Plus, including all the other GPTs that exist and are being created by other companies and so on and so forth. But that said, our life troubleshooter is fucking awesome. It's amazing. I really enjoy it. Like, I will go just to ask it questions for the sake of seeing what it fucking spits out. And at the moment, I'm trying to train it to become sentient. But we have gone back and forth with suggestions for it. We've programmed rules into it. We have fed it insights from the first 4 seasons of Dualistic Unity. We will continue to improve it by adding more seasons, including the community topics episodes and even some of the workshop insights. And so it's going to be robust when we're finally finished with it. But a big part of that is your feedback. So if you would like to help us, go and check it out. You can find it on ChatGPT. Just look up Dualistic Unity under Explore GPTs. You can go to dualistiCunity.com and click on Life Troubleshooter, or you can use the QR code that's on the screen right now. And then just let us know. Go to the Discord, leave some comments, leave some feedback. We may at some point open a channel that says Life Troubleshooter, just to post some answers that we're getting. Maybe, I don't know, that'd be fun just to kind of share them. I'm going to throw that out to our Discord god, who I'm sure is listening, and see what Jazz thinks, for sure. But by the way, shout out to Jazz. If you haven't joined our Discord yet, please do. It's important that we recognize that Andrew and I are not, in fact, important. It's really not about us whatsoever. What is important is the community that supports us, the community that keeps us here and makes it possible for us to maintain the podcast as a whole. It's everybody in that community that is continuing the ripple, that continues to bring in new listeners, because frankly, we don't do much in the way of advertising whatsoever. And a lot of people just do referrals. They refer their friends, they refer their listeners. Right now we have a viral video contest, and I have been stoked to see all of the entries. Thank you so much. It's still going, by the way, for another like 12 days. So if you want to put a video out there about Dualistic Unity, you can win a free ticket to our California mini retreat. And those tickets are selling fast. So we have one that is being reserved specifically for the winner of this contest. So if they sell out the tickets otherwise, this is your only chance. So all you have to do is make a video. And I've been stoked to see that there are even people who have decided, well, I'm going to promote my video on TikTok because you can do so for fairly cheap. And I thought that was brilliant. If it was me, I'd be like, yeah, that's a good way of like, if you're going to hedge your bets, why the hell not? I think that's fucking great. So, if you want to do that, we would love to see your entry. More importantly, I think we would love to see what you think of Dualistic Unity. We would love to see how you're doing. We would love to see you express yourself. It's just kind of nice that we have a way to reward you for doing so if you are the winner of this contest. Because, I mean, how often do we get the chance to do that? More and more often as we grow. In fact, wow, I just went on a whole tear there. Just wanted to open this up again and tell everybody in the comments section you can ask comments or you can ask questions, which does remind me, and I'm going to end this little rant right after this. We are no longer doing the live shows as they were every 2 weeks. We have changed the format. It is now a live/Q&A episode, which means that we're going to post probably today on Patreon another request for questions from our Patreon supporters. And then on Tuesday, when we have our live show, we're going to open it up by first answering some of the questions. And then if you'd like to call in, not only can you ask a question, you can weigh in on some of the questions that have come beforehand. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to add another level of engagement where not only do people get to kind of come on and shoot the shit with us, they get to weigh in on what other people have asked.
Yeah, I think it's gonna add a whole new fun element to the situation because now it'll be like, we've done some Q&A episodes in the past, and they're always a lot of fun. I'll do them on my Instagram story from time to time, but now it's like a group Q&A or a interactive Q&A. And that's so like it's cool and like fucking A, dude. Like this whole idea of self-importance is such a silly and interesting thing, but we'll try and it's like that's a component of just egotistical sort of behavior is like the desire to feel important, like feel like something, like you're doing something and someone recognizes that you're doing something. And there's like this draw to it. And it's like your own demise is that because as you feel like it should be something that's happening, it then becomes something that's at the forefront of your experience in your mind. And then it's like, the fear of just letting go, like just straight up letting go and not. And it stems, I think, a big recognition could be that like you're not fucking important. And it's so nice to fucking like as much as it's funny to think that oh, did I think I was really important? Have I thought I'm important? Have I wanted to be important? And it's like, well, if I'm prioritizing thinking what I think about is me, then there is a degree of importance, even if it's like an underlying sort of assumption. But um it's funny how and it's awesome because now seeing all the tools we're gonna have, the podcast is kind of a ever shifting, changing expression. We got Jackie Amanda in the podcast now. We got Oren and Julia as a component, involved in it, and just more and more people. And then so of course it makes sense to have more interactive things because this is my podcast in the sense of my podcast. So at some point it's going to be, maybe we'll have had tens of thousands of people involved in the podcast that has nothing to do with anyone. It's just like maybe we, came across each other and started talking and chatting one day, but it has nothing to do with us. And that's why it's fun that, the groups, the retreats, the podcasts, like they're just space. There's just a space to express. There's not a direction. There's not the thought of and how it's kind of interesting too, because I feel like on our free Zoom calls or Patreon calls, especially, people used to come with a lot more questions almost. And I feel like there aren't as many anymore. Like early on, it was a lot of, hey, I've been thinking about this. What do you guys think of this? What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? And now it's much more just conversational, just going through stuff, talking about stuff, sharing things, but it's not like this sort of back and forth sort of feeling. And so Anyway, it's so freeing to realize that there isn't, because as long as you think there is some degree of, importance about yourself, there's going to be bars. You're going to set those bars. You're going to have those bars. Like, they go hand in hand with certain assumptions. Cause like, you gotta have this idea, like you got your split yourself into two, in order to have assumptions or judgments or whatever it is about yourself. And it's like, if I can be all right with just, expressing whatever's there and not trying to, control myself or think I have control of myself, even, is an interesting one. And how, it's kind of like, assumed, well, you got to stay in control, don't get out of control. Like, you hear that all the time. And it's so fascinating that that's the exact thing we can never actually have, and we never are, but we're just, keeping things thinking that we do. So, yeah. Anyway, also wanted to give a shout out to the Amanda and Jackie's research topics, and for the new uh segment, Being Curious. Is that wait, which segment is that? I don't know if I've heard that name, but I'm excited for it. So, fuck yeah, Being Curious, Amanda and Jackie. Loving the episodes, by the way. I resonate with fucking every single one that you guys have been putting out. So, yeah, thank you for being involved.
And that's exactly how much new shit we got going on right now. We don't even know how much new shit we got going on right now, for sure. But if you want to find out, Patreon is the place to be. And again, I understand it's an investment. I hate asking for money. I'm not actually asking. We're going to continue to do the podcast for free anyway. But if you want to, it's $5 a month. It's $5 a month. What do you spend $5 a month on? Can you think of a bunch of other things that you spend $5 a month on that you don't really use, or that you could do without? $5 a month, and you can spend 8 hours, I think 8 or 10 hours a month, chatting with the community on group Zooms. It's worthwhile, in my opinion. Anyway, and if you can't do that, we have the free groups. And if you can't do that, we got the free Discord. And if you can't do that, we're going to have more events, and we're going to come up with other kinds of free shit, for sure. But that said, right now, the best we can offer is the privacy of Patreon. So definitely. And if you want to join the groups, or if you want to just be a Patreon supporter and you don't want to be in the groups, that's fine too. We appreciate the support, of course. And then if you are a tier 3 supporter, you actually get a mention in the credit roll of all of our video episodes. If you actually stick around for the end of this episode, not right now because it's live streaming, but after the fact, if you check it out on YouTube, you will actually see a list of the Patreon supporters that have been helping us out from month to month to month since we started. And that list continues to grow. And that's not even everybody, because some people choose not to have their name on the list for privacy reasons. So you can support us in any way that you would like, or not at all. And we're going to continue to be here. It really is just about you continuing to live your life. It's funny because we were talking about importance, right? And I don't know if you remember this, but months ago, I think months ago, I had somebody on TikTok who was just relentlessly attacking me because I was obviously one of those mindfulness gurus that was like trying to milk people of their money, and I was showing signs of narcissistic personality disorder, and he goes on to list like all of the different signs of narcissistic personality disorder, and he was just relentless about this. And he just kept yelling at me like I'm neurodivergent. You're saying anything to me is bigotry, because you're not accounting for how sensitive I am to you. So if any response was bigotry, right? And the point being is that I kind of had fun with it for a little bit, and then I blocked him and let it go. But you see, what I like to do is I like to block people like that for a short period of time, and then I go and unblock them later, so that way they have another opportunity to face the wall, right? And so he came back today. I think it might have been today. And immediately he starts in about, again, how, I'm preying on people, and that it's his job to identify narcissists on social media to warn people. so they don't fall into the hands of people who are preying on them like me. And you can hear the self-importance if you think about it. Oh God, if not for him, poor you and your limited, tiny intellect. It's going to get fooled into following some mindfulness guru, who's telling you that you have power over your life, that you have the capacity to have influence here and now. Right? Obviously, that's bad for you because he's not telling you to take any accountability. None of which is from my video. See, this is the funniest part, is that he's more or less just like, I am here to save everyone. Ha ha. And if you say anything, it's because you hate me and you dwell on me and you think about me all the time. Do you hear the level of self-importance? And it's just because I think about myself all the time, therefore you must think about me all the time. And I think about myself all the time in such a way where I'm above everyone else. I mean, the reason that people don't like me is because I'm smarter than them. Do you see that? Do you hear that? Right? Like, oh, there's so much of it for sure. And yet when you question him on it, because he's like, I could make better content, you're like, well, please do. And then he did, and it got no traction. It's like, okay. He's like, well, I have real skills. It's like, but they're not in your content. Right? And that's the whole point. It doesn't matter what is obviously being displayed. The point is that he has to maintain a certain view of himself that is both superior and a victim, because both of them are important. And isn't that funny that we can invest in both, regardless of how contradictory they are, simply for the sake of feeling more important?
Ooh, man. And so they almost go hand in hand, right? And so mm, because like in order to hold on to that perspective that someone has to, like, there's something that you have to offer that someone couldn't do on their own. You got to think about yourself in a certain way, like any sort of like teacher even. And it makes me wonder how deep that delusion sort of goes, and how it's reinforced by the world, in the world, you know this thought that, like, well, I know more about something, and I've already figured myself out, but now I can be there to help you with something. But like, you haven't really, like, you never do. You've never turned over every stone. Like, there's always more in there, and you can have this assumption, just because you've turned over some stones and stopped looking for other stones, that you've turned over all the stones, but you have like an unwillingness to look at all that stuff. And then we're able to use identity as a way of not doing it. It's like, oh no, I'm not that type of person. I don't do those things. Even, like, I'm an introvert. I don't do that. Oh, I'm an extrovert. I can't be alone. Like, all these things just to circumnavigate things that we're afraid of or worried about, or not willing to even look at, because it's not even about necessarily overcoming everything, but not assuming things about yourself as you go, like making false assumptions about yourself one way or the other. And so I guess, as you start to do that, the way that you talk is more grounded, the way that you act is more grounded, everything you do is more grounded, because on the ground is where things are happening. Like, they're where things are actually going on. And like, there's a lot of stuff on the ground. All your stuff is on the ground. All your shit is on the ground. And so when you're on the ground actually living, it's like you're going to be walking through all that stuff, waddling, wafting, swimming through all the stuff that is on the ground about you, that you just, thought that you could avoid or not look at. And when you start, focusing on something, it's like all of it's right there because you're not running from it so much anymore. Like all of that stuff has been there the whole time. We just like didn't want to admit it or didn't want to look at it, but it's not about, because it's all in there. Like all that stuff is in there for not just me, but for everyone and everything. But at the same time, it's like I don't know, man. Like it is just my stuff that I'm working through, that I'm going through, that I'm facing, that I'm dealing with. And so it's cool that, I don't know, as you start doing that, like that's all you can do. You can't There's no reason to convince anyone of anything because it's like I got a whole plate of things to do that I can, talk about stuff as I go, share things as I go, express things as I go, but it's like not from a place of not from that place of fucking importance like anyone needs me to share it, or that, if I wasn't here to share what was going on or tell you this thing or answer your question, like you couldn't figure it out on your own, or recognize it on your own, or realize it on your own. But as you do that, and as you do kind of come back to yourself and just relax a little bit more, it's like that's when you allow things to start changing and yourself to start changing. But as long as you're holding on to, yourself as a fucking teacher or anything like of any semblance of importance whatsoever, it's like there's going to be that bar, there's going to be that stress, there's going to be that rigidity or desire to maintain something as opposed to, something. You can't, like, even right now, it's not, if I'm thinking, and you actually just posted a video talking about how when someone starts to feel a little more clear about things and then it starts to escape them, they claw for it, they reach for it, they try and reach back for that. But that experience was here. So it's not something that you can even conceptually, properly conceptualize in any way. It's just something that you can be moment to moment to moment. It's not something you can hold on to. You can't hold on to it at all. And so, like, all you can do is continue to let go and then eventually just stop holding on quite so much. But yeah, as long as you're holding on to any self-importance, then you're going to be holding on to something.
And it really does help to remember the poles of self importance, as it were, which is I am superior and I am a victim. And so this is something I watch for in myself, and something that I'm happy to say that is something that has, I guess, altered how I interact with people, including at the retreats. In fact, I don't need to be important. And because I don't need to be important, I don't need you to see me as anything. So I'm not catering how I respond to you according to some need, which means I'm just being myself. Right. And that's very much the point, is that I'm not a victim and I have nothing to teach you. We're equals in this. In fact, we are quite literally in this together as much as as two cells in my body. Right. And to say that one cell teaches the other isn't quite accurate, although they both inform each other. They inform each other. The whole informs the individual, and the individual informs the whole. And so it's interesting, because when you let go of this need to be important, you find out that you're fundamental, that you are reality itself. And that means it's not about a measuring contest, because who are you competing with? Yourself? Are you competing with other versions of you? It seems counterproductive, let's just say. Because, and this is the only thing, I'm just going to throw this out there. How does it feel when you are just enjoying your groove? Let's just say that you have recently learned a new craft or a new hobby or something like that. Let's just say you've taken up reading recently. And then you're talking to somebody and immediately they're like, yeah, well, I have to read like 2 books a month. Like they just have to outdo you. All of a sudden it's competitive. Is that a nice feeling? Do you feel diminished by that? That is something that is happening wherein somebody who feels and is experiencing reality in the same way that you are isn't thinking about how they would feel in if they were to do it to themselves. But you have an opportunity right there to go, shit, that's me doing that to me. And recognize that you don't have to continue to perpetuate it. You don't. It changes with you. And that's really it. We have a lot of comments in the comment section today. I just wanted to say I'm loving this. Do you know how far we've come? We've come so far in the last 2 years plus because that's right. Who's trying to be good? That's awesome. That's awesome. But it's important to ask things like that. It really is. Like you should question those who would say they're your teacher. And if they are fucking rattled by the question, if they're like, "Whoa, blah, 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 how dare you?" You know, that's a good sign that you should be looking somewhere else. Because what are you hoping to learn? What are you hoping to learn? You know, this is something I enjoy about the channeling thing, right? Like it never fails. There's always somebody's like, yeah, well, how do you know they're not talking to aliens? It's like, okay, well, you could do that or not. Like, or you could just, bank on the fact that they're probably not, that they're exactly like you, going through the same shit that you are. Right. And if they were talking to aliens, you don't think that perhaps they'd have better shit to say? You know, let's just say that some interdimensional alien decided to make contact with the human race in order to perpetuate a positive ripple. Do you really think it would do it through somebody preaching spirituality? I don't think so. In any way, shape, or form. It would be a message of aware intelligence and responsibility. Get your shit together, right? But you can't do that and be the person telling people to get their shit together. You see? See how that works? Because all of a sudden, then they're not being responsible. You're still the one encouraging them to be responsible. It's kind of like the law, right? Like we don't do things because we'll get punished as opposed to not doing them because it makes sense not to do them. Right? Well, it's the same thing. Like if these are hyper intelligent aliens, why don't they understand that? Like, why don't they understand that us listening to them doesn't teach us responsibility? Nothing changes because right now we're in the mentality where we're always looking for somebody to follow. So, no, pardon me, I don't buy it. If this person is channeling an alien, that alien is just as egotistical as every other human being I've ever met.
And that immediately made me wonder, like, we kind of assume that, oh, an alien, how do you know an alien is not speaking through them? As if there's this guarantee that the alien is more intelligent than us. Like, it could be a dumbass fucking alien. It could be an alien that's way more egotistical than us. Like this idea that, oh, it's an alien speaking through them and therefore inherently objectively more intelligent is silly. But I always kind of maintain that's like, all right, even as I would hear about it, it's like, yeah, there is this assumption that it's like they are of higher intelligence. They could be of lower intelligence just as easily. Just because an alien's speaking through you doesn't mean you're not entirely full of shit, even if it was happening in that way. But to your point, like if that's all it comes down to, if all it comes down to is like being yourself and taking responsibility, there's almost there's like a basic simplicity to it, which doesn't mean that it's easy at all, but it kind of strips away the assumptions about even interactions because you can only take responsibility right now. You can only be yourself right now, and that's not for anyone else. And oh man, it's crazy how we just are, it's like taught to live for we're taught to live for other people. Like we're taught to live for anyone but ourselves. And like and there's so many sort of it's like there's stop gaps or like yeah, like fucking, but they're only my own barriers and based on my own assumptions about reasons to not be yourself, like there's a reality out there that's very reflective of a certain mentality. And so just not being in that mentality of comparison, of judgment, and like letting go of your judgments about yourself, like you're still in this spot that's, maybe surrounded by potential judgments. And so just not partaking in it immediately, I don't know, starts to feel like, yeah, like you're more alone almost in like an interesting sense. And I don't even know if I'm making any sense. And I know that's just my own little self-deprecation mixed in here. But oh gosh, like how I don't even know where I was going with that, but how much we hold on to this idea of like being something, and like again that self-importance in a sense, but letting that go is letting go, and that's freedom. And it's like such a, as much as we've talked about it on the podcast, like it comes in waves, right? It comes in different sort of insights, realizations, experiences, and it's just a deepening too, because there could be points, where you have let go a little bit moment to moment, and then you see more and you recognize more and you realize more, you become aware of more. And like you've talked about, like with just awareness of things, it's gnarly how awareness of yourself hits in a lot of ways too. Like just awareness of all your tendencies and habits, and you can't really avoid certain realizations about, like, oh, this sort of thing, oh, this sort of habit, you start to see where those come from and where they stem from, and you can't really, you can't unsee the things you see. You can't undo it at all. And it's like sometimes I kind of want to a little bit, and like, no, you can't, but you don't have to. It's just like we were talking about yesterday, like you're already changed as you do that. And even as I'm talking right now, I'm like, there have been specific insights for sure, but I'm like not even thinking of anything specifically anymore. But it's just a continuation of, ways that you're not being yourself, just reasons for not being yourself, things that you're holding on to, concerns, worries. And it's like that trade-off between, you know, assuming that there is something outside of me, you know, besides me, and like, there isn't, but assuming that that it's not just my own stuff that I'm always going through. It's like, no, other people are going through things. Like, yeah, for sure. And like there is that balance, but at the same time, it's just you going through it. And I guess, yeah, if you think of yourself as separate and not, again, there's that assumption of separateness with that, and then there's weight. But like without that, then it's not really weight, it's just you continuing to move through different components of yourself, experiences of yourself. Oh, no worries.
Yeah, there we
Yes.
go. For some reason, the button's not working on this side for the mute button. I have no idea. I've actually had to resort to the short key. Anyway, we're like 5 minutes over. So we're going to end here and we're going to continue on Patreon in 10 minutes. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. This has been a fun conversation. We've covered a lot of ground. I look forward to getting back into what we were just discussing in the next 10 minutes on Patreon. So if you want to explore this with us, that's the place to be. Otherwise, have a great weekend. Do tune in tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, for an episode of Dualistic Unity Real with Jackie and Amanda. Always a lot of fun. Take care, everyone. We'll see you soon.
Bye, everyone.